we come to Daniel and chapter 5. King Nebuchadnezzar had ruled for 43 years and then he died. One of his heirs in his family tree was Belshazzar, who was ruling the kingdom of Babylon when we come to chapter 5. Now, at that time, Babylon was being attacked by the Persian army, and Babylon was surrounded, and the people in the town were so afraid that they would lose the battle. So Belshazzar wanted to show the people that they need not be afraid. He wanted to prove it to them that they had food supplies to last them for the next 20 years. And so, to make this known to the people and show that he was carefree in heart, he gave a big banquet for 1,000 people. And they were reveling, eating, drinking, and rejoicing. And Belshazzar, he showed no respect for the power of man, because the Persian army by that time had grown very strong. So he showed no respect for the power of man. Also, he showed contempt and no respect for the power of God, because as they were drinking and partying and enjoying themselves, he gave orders to bring the gold and silver cups and vessels to drink from that was in the temple of his God. These gold and silver vessels had been brought from Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, and they were very holy, but the king wanted to show that he had no respect for God or anything of that sort. So he gave these goblets of gold and silver for drinking liquor, for drinking wine, and his concubines and all the people, they drank from it, and they kept praising the gods of gold and silver and bronze and iron and wood and stone. These gods were the gods of Babylon. So using the holy cups of the house of God, they were praising their gods, and they were dancing and enjoying themselves. He, Belshazzar, wanted to remove the influence that King Nebuchadnezzar had on the people in his last days of his reign. After he had stopped being an animal, he honored the God of heavens. So the king's wives and concubines, they enjoyed and they drank the wine. Meanwhile, as the reveling was going on, suddenly near the lampstand that was near to the king, the lampstand in the banquet hall, the fingers of a man appeared and wrote something on the wall. When the king saw it, he was frightened. He thought he's seeing a ghost. Just imagine if you are sitting in a party and some hand comes and writes something on the wall. What will you think? You will think a ghost has come. And the king Belshazzar was frightened out of his mind. His legs were shaking and he didn't know what to do. So he called all the wise men, the Chaldeans, the magicians, the diviners, the astrologers in his kingdom. He called them and said, "Read to me what is written on the wall." But the wise men could not read it, could not read the writing on the wall. So when the queen mother heard the commotion of fear and anxiety, the people were shouting in fear, she said to Belshazzar, "Well, you can call for Daniel, who solved riddles and visions and dreams when Nebuchadnezzar was alive. So they called Daniel. And Daniel, when he came, he told King Belshazzar, you know, King, what happened to your father Nebuchadnezzar, you know, his whole history and how he became an animal until he realized that the God in heaven is in total control. But you, O King Belshazzar, are rebelling under God's authority. You have dishonored the holy goblets, the holy cups, and drinking vessels from the God's temple. And you should not be so foolish that you challenge the hand of God, who is the creator of the universe. So Belshazzar was frightened, and he was waiting to know what the writing said and what it meant. Now we can apply this to our lives. We must not use the things of God for sinful purposes. For example, the church buildings, we should keep them pure and holy, and not like in Europe and England and America, where the church buildings are turning into bars, are turning into mosques, are turning into temples. That is what is happening today in these modern times, and a place for gay people to meet and drink and enjoy themselves. Do you think God is going to keep quiet? No, God is not going to keep quiet. Or the church donations and the funds that come into the church are pure and holy and should be treated that way, should be used for the purposes of building up God's kingdom. So we should honor things of God and be careful how we use the things that are dedicated to God. We should not desecrate the Holy Communion or the place where God lives. It is pure and holy. We learn from that. If you make fun of God today, God will surely give you a good reply that you will learn all your lifetime. Yes, so we find in my family's house, something happened when my father, he was posted to a village area, and there some village pastors came and took the service in their home in the Gujarati language, and it was mixed with Marathi, and they couldn't understand it. So my mother got a bout of laughter, and she laughed and laughed and laughed during the prayer meeting. And then in a few days' time, when it was her birthday, on that same birthday, my sister, who was there, we were kept in the hostel at that time, so she died on that very day, and laughter was wiped out of my mother's face for a lifetime. So we find that when preachers are preaching in our church, we should honor them and not laugh at their shortcomings and their faults, but should honor God, because God is a God worthy of honor, and we can't play the fool with God.